Okay. Hello once again, Mike, and welcome to the first interview inside coaching and consulting business golf community. I'm very pleased to welcome you here and very excited to have you on board of this meeting and to discuss more in depth what you are doing and actually how you can help entrepreneurs, coaches and consultants to overcome fears and to expand without thinking about everything that's dragging them back. First, let's introduce yourself with few words. What's your background? Where are you from? I understood that you are from UK.
Yeah, so I'm Mike, and I work with business owners to overcome their fears. I am based in the UK. I also have my own podcast, which is the Raw Show, and I also run my own Facebook group as well. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is to do with the mindset side of things. But aside from that, as I said, I got a podcast. I also co-own an entrepreneurial magazine as well. So I'm in the media space a lot more, and yeah, it's interesting because you see a lot of common themes when you work with enough people, and yeah, I can't wait to share.
For how long have you been in the media space?
Probably about 1 or 2 years now, but
Yeah.
I've kind of gone from videos to writing to blogging to then the more magazine and podcast side. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, and I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You are all in all social media channels. That's something we all have to keep in mind, that we have to be present in a lot of places in order to attract bigger and well-aligned audience. And how did you come up with this idea to educate people about overcoming fears of entrepreneurship? Can you tell us in brief?
Yeah, it kind of started when I realized that I had them first.
Yeah.
So it's an issue that I started off having myself. I realized that it wasn't just me.
We all have them at the beginning, at least.
Yeah, we do. And it's something that I realized that I had when I first started. But then at the same time, I realized that, again, as I started to grow and as I started to improve, I was still coming up against very similar fears, even when things seemed to be going well. So over time, I learned that the fear is something that happens to everybody, that's stretching, that's pushing their comfort zones, no matter where they're at, as long as what they're striving for is unknown or what they're striving for is something that's uncomfortable, then the mindset side is always going to play a part if they're going to want to actually achieve those things.
Yeah, the mindset is something of crucial importance for every success, and most often, even if we don't tell ourselves we have such doubts, fears, and we try to hide them, but not to overcome them most of the times. And sometimes the resolutions came from unexpected places.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also quite strange because people think that once you've overcame fear, that's it, then you never really feel it again. But in my experience and working with clients, it's something that's going to show up almost no matter what. But as long as you've got a plan for it, you've got a practice for it, then you can start to prevent some of it. But then if it does ever show up, then you're ready and prepared for it, which is how I spend the majority of my time.
Yes, very often we think that we overcome something, but it's still on subconscious level. So we have to deal with it more in depth, not on the surface of what we see. So, for example, can you tell us what were your biggest fears when you were starting up your business? And then I will share mine as well.
Right. Well, mine was fear of failure, firstly, and fear of public failure as well. So, if if no one really saw me fail, then that wouldn't matter as much as if everyone saw me fail. So it was more of a public thing for me. But then, even as things started to progress slowly, I then started to fear that success as well. So I went from fear of failure to fear of success, probably a period of about 12 months to 12 months to 2 years when you first start. So yeah, it's something that I had when I first started.
Do you think there's such a real thing like fear of success? Because most of us fear from failure, but probably there is also a fear of success. You have to overcome the fear that you have to deal with a lot of new things if you succeed at a given step, and you can't realize that you subconsciously are dragging back to not face all these problems, and that's why actually you have fear of success in the endeavors you are making. Do you think that's a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a deeper reason behind it. So I use fear of success because would I lose friends if I was successful? What would people think of me if I was successful? Would people think any different of me, think less of me, not spend any time with me because I'm successful and perhaps they're not? And it becomes this whole comparison game where you start going deeper into it. But I think that ultimately, in order to deal with it, sometimes we've got to simplify the problem so you can make the actual solution. Sometimes we overcomplicate the problems because that makes it easier to say, well, I can't do anything about it. And if you make the problem simple enough, then 9 times out of 10, you can find something that can help counteract it. Something that I did, something that I still do because I'm always pushing, I'm always stretching. So the fears that I've got tend to come up quite often, kind of every month or every 2 months, because I'm always looking for something new, always looking to strive for more, which is why all the fears tend to show up. But then equally, I've got a plan for them when they do show up. So
Yeah.
I'm able to overcome them quite quickly over the years.
Yeah, actually, very often we overcomplicate things, and this makes most of the problems not actually the real problems, because very often they are small. For example, very early in my career, I have a lot of fears from speaking. Actually, when I stay in front of audience, I stop talking. I was absolutely frozen to death. This was a long time ago when I was a student. But actually, the way I overcome this fear was by practicing the thing I was feared of. I talked multiple times in different audiences, and slowly, probably after 10 to 20 talks, the fear actually disappeared. And I realized it was not something very big deal, not something that I couldn't overcome. But initially, it it seems as something impossible to be done.
Yeah,
So
but yeah, being exposed to it is something that people do tend to not understand that can happen as well. So you can actually get to a point when you don't actually face your fears, but then because you don't actually get exposed to them, you never really overcome them either. So that they're always there until you actually face them and realize, maybe it's not so bad.
yeah,
So
exactly.
sometimes it is that afterwards
Most
feeling
of
when
the
you sort
time
of say,
people try to avoid, in all cases, things that are fearing, and actually if you don't avoid them, and if you are practicing these things, they start to become something normal, and the fear is easily overcome. But you have to do the first step, actually. And yeah, this is when you realize which are the things exactly that you are feared of. But on the other side, you have times when you don't realize. You struggle with something, but you don't know why. So how to realize exactly when you have some mindset problems. Do you have some possibilities to find out these things when they are not so obvious in the first place?
Yeah, I think I think one of the starting points is we need to learn how to ask ourselves the right questions at those moments. We need to figure out, like, is there any proof or evidence behind whatever it is that we think is happening? Is it something that's likely to happen or not? Is there anything that you can do initially to make it less of a fear? So if there's something that you can do quickly to actually get the fear level down a little bit, then chances are that's something that you can do to kind of make the situation easier. So using speaking as an idea, because that was something that I used to struggle with as well, was in the first instance about, right, well, would I feel better if I had notes? Then the answer would be yeah. So, right, well, I'd make notes. So then even if the fear showed up, you know that in that situation you have notes to refer to if you do struggle, which was something that I had to do. I had to rehearse my lines. I had to make sure I'd gone over the presentation a couple of times before I even felt comfortable enough and confident enough to step on the stage. And then it was like, right, well, can I start to reduce the amount of notes that I had over time? So I went from a page of notes to half a page to a couple of bullet points to one or two bullet points to maybe just little prompts to make sure that I don't lose track. And I've got to a point when I don't necessarily need notes. I just need to know like the sections that I'm talking about and make sure that it flows. And then the rest of it is down to me then. I don't need anything else. So that's where I am at right now. But I started off needing notes because I realized that the more preparation that I had beforehand, the better things are in the moment as well. It's something
Exactly.
that I had to cope with. So that was something that I did. But that was because I asked myself, well, what would it take for me to feel that little bit better in that situation? And if we're talking speaking, then it could be notes, it could be going for a walk beforehand, it could be, you know, if you've got a nervous stomach, it could be making sure that you don't eat anything before you go on, otherwise the nerves will take over and you've eaten, so you get bloated and it all sort of counteracts each other. And it's trying to work around the idea of what would it take to reduce the nervousness or the fear in that situation, and then it comes up with a couple of bullet points that you can do before you're in that situation.
Yeah.
That's
So
one of the ways to
being prepared is the crucial part. If you are prepared to something new, the levels of the fears are dropping significantly down, and you can much easily deal with these new situations, because very often fears are from something that we don't. It's not comfortable. It's not understandable at first sight, and when you practice more and more, the level of these dubs are getting lower, and you can manage it much easily. That's something I also realized in my experience, that everything new you have to practice a lot, and only then you can express without fears your knowledge, your everything. Uh, Actually, when you are trying to help your clients and the people in your audience to overcome these fears, do you have some practices and systems that can help them make this more easily to digest? For example, probably you propose some meditation practices, or writing notes like you already said. Do you have such systems that can make the process easier and faster? Because all we know, this takes time, and these days everyone is busy and people don't give enough time to overcome any problem.
Well, I think one of the I just got a bit of a tweak there. Sorry about that. One of the initial things that I probably would say as well is the practice has to be your own. So it has to be something that you will come up with yourself. So when I work with my own clients, it's more about coming up with something that works for them, coming up with a list of questions, coming up with a list of prompts, coming up with breathing techniques, coming up with a certain meditation practice, as you mentioned before. And it's all about tailoring the experience so that things can work out. Because a particular practice that might work for yourself might not work for somebody else. So there's always this element of we can use the cookie cutter approach if you want. So I can say, okay, you've got this practice, then this one, smash them together and go ahead now and go and use that. But the problem with that is it won't necessarily work. There's no way of guaranteeing that it will work. So I work quite closely with the clients that I work with to make sure that it does work for them. Sometimes it's the order of the practices. Sometimes we need to change the order. Sometimes you need to do more breathing and less writing. Sometimes it needs to be more writing and less breathing. But the practice, you can put one together, and as long as it lasts maybe 10 or 15 minutes, then that's enough to tweak and change your state enough to reduce the fear. Because sometimes we spend ages doing something, spend ages putting the practice together, and we spend so long doing it when you could shorten everything down into, say, 15 minutes, and that can be enough to change yourself so that you can actually move forwards and do whatever it is. So my main focus at the minute is to do with like selling and sales conversations and helping people sell their services and essentially make more money and more income from overcoming the fears and increasing their like self-esteem and confidence. Because it's amazing how closely related self-esteem is to confidence and someone's ability to sell. So if you're not happy in yourself, and you're not happy about the product that you're selling, you're not overly confident about it, then that blends into the fact that maybe you can't sell it, which means a sales script won't help that person because they don't believe in themselves and believe in the product enough to sell it in a confident way. So that's why I approached selling from the mindset side, because it essentially makes anything easier. So I can give you any script.
Yeah, I'm always telling the same.
And then you can do it.
The selling process is something that's inside your mindset. Actually, only if you believe highly in what you do, only then you can sell effectively and convince people that this is the thing that can bring value to them. And actually, this is the additional side to the removing fear. So most of us have some kind of fears when talking to other people and when they are trying to sell, but this is only the surface side. If you work more on your inner level of confidence about what you are doing, then fears can easily disappear and can be removed without so many problems on the top level. And actually, it's not that much fear of communication. It's mostly fear of the value inside our scripts, inside our products, and so on. And if you address correctly the problem, then the solution came much easier. And I think you always taught this thing to your clients. From your experience, how long does it take if somebody has some relatively high level fear of doing something? How long does it take to overcome fully this problem if he address it correctly?
Well, if you take into account the fact that a lot of it's to do with preventing things as well, so we can address the problem or we can work to prevent it as well. So you can approach it from a lot of different ways. So if you mix in everything that we've spoken about, so self-esteem, confidence, being a bit more, having more belief in yourself and whatever it is that you're doing. So if it's speaking, believing in yourself when you're on stage, having the confidence to to go on there and perform, if you focus on planning and preparing beforehand to make things that little bit easier, if you then focus on, okay, well, why do you feel the fear in the first place? What's the root cause of it? Do you fear failure? Do you fear what people think of you? All those sorts of things, and you start to unpick all those, it's possible to at least make some inroads if you have enough exposure to it as well. So if you speak once a year, then it's always going to be difficult for you to get over it, because by that time your body's like readapted to the situation, like your normal, if you will, is not speaking. So
Yeah.
every time you're on stage, it's going to feel brand new because you only do it once a year. If you speak,
Actually, it's a matter of
if you,
normalization of the things around us. If we normalize a given problem, if we feel that it's normal to go on stage every single day, for example, then we will not perceive the same way if we do it only once a year. And
no, of course not. It's
yeah,
the same with doing videos as well. So today I've done
yeah,
2 videos already. Been on camera twice already. Got this one with yourself, and then I've also got one tonight my time as well. So I'm doing 4 videos in a day, and there's some people that can't do one, but I'm doing 4, which means although I'm not massively comfortable on camera, it's not something that I really experience because I do so much of it. Because
yeah,
I don't have the luxury of speaking all the time. So speaking's always going to be something I'm going to have to come up with or do my practice, if you will, to make sure that I can still go on stage, because I'm not exposed to speaking as much as being on camera. So it is about making it normal. It is about being exposed to it enough. Because the first time you do anything's always the worst. The first time you do
yeah.
anything's always the worst time you do something. Whether it be learning to drive, whether it be speaking, whether it be doing videos, whether it be having sales conversations, whether it be doing anything to do with your business. 9 times out of 10, the first time you do it's always going to be the worst.
Yeah, actually, when I get first on camera, the feeling was awful. It was very difficult to keep my thoughts and my speaking in line with what I wanted to say. But then I realized with not very long time, with few practices, that it's getting better and better. And after a few months, actually, this problem disappeared totally. So it's I can confirm that it's a matter of practicing. Do you believe that somebody who follow these steps, who practice a lot of the things that he has weaknesses, do you believe he can become bulletproof and no worries at all? Or you believe that there is still a small level of fears besides that we are practicing a lot? And is it helpful? Is it still a problem to still have a dubs after many hours of practicing a given skill?
I think one of the things that you did bring up was being bulletproof, and this sort of brings into light the fact that there are some elements of confidence or self-esteem or belief or overcoming the fears that are purely situational. So they're things that are purely based on your repetition of the thing, and if you're exposed to it enough, then you will be fine. But there's also an element of confidence or self-esteem, or whatever you want to call it, that is transferable, which basically means you have it no matter what situation that you're in. So you can take your self-confidence, you can take your self-belief, you can take how bulletproof you are, and you can take it on stage, and you can take it in front of the camera, and you can take it when talking to clients or potential clients, and you can take it in those board meetings, and you can take it wherever you decide to take it. And that is something that starts with yourself, it's something that ends with yourself, and it's something that we can't really get round, because if you work on that, if you work on being bulletproof, you can shorten the amount of time that it takes you to overcome this idea of being exposed to something. So I feel better speaking, and I've probably only been on stage 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
But I can go on stage and speak, and it's fine, no issues at all. Same with the podcasting. I've done more than 50 episodes now, but I felt fine after 2 or 3 episodes, because there's an element of confidence and self-esteem and belief in myself that I can take into any situation. I can take what I know, what I've done, the practices that I've got, I can take those into any situation. So when someone says, well, do you still feel fear? The answer is yeah, but because I can carry everything that I've built up over the years. I carry it around with me. It's not something that, like, I'm not better when I'm on stage than when I've got a podcast or when I'm doing videos. It's still me. It's still the same thing. It's still the same person from one situation to the next situation to the next situation. So you can get better at situations, or you can get better in yourself, and you can then carry it into any situation.
I also believe that confidence is something that grow over time with practicing different skills, and it can help in different situations, not only in one direction. But of course, you can always have some smaller and minor doubts in specific situations, because you are not prepared to all spectrum of situations in life, and you have to grow and to learn some inside yourself, some power to overcome these small doubts, because they will always be present, but you can deal with them without interfering with your outer exposure, with the way you present, with the way you speak. So basically, I believe that we cannot be 100% bulletproof. We can do better and better. We can be confident in almost all situations, but we still have some small doubts in, that are natural, uh, that can't be avoided from the human nature. Also, I'm realizing that one and the same task and one and the same thing, in one situation it's became much easier and flawless. In other situation it's become more difficult. And when I try to find reasons in the environment, I can't find, and I realize that only my mood, my inner feelings are interfering with these situations. And in specific situations, when I'm at a given state, I do better. If I'm in other state, I do worse. So I'm trying to learn uh, to use and to modulate these inner states, and I'm still learning. If I learn how to modulate them with ease, then I think it will be the next level of confidence. I think this is something that also can be learned, but this is probably a little bit more difficult. This is the next level, when you can consciously interfere with your feelings and your given mood at a specific time. Do you think this can be also improved?
Yeah, I think what you sort of brought up are a couple of things really, and the first one being that it's almost like the more armor you've got, so to speak, or the more vests that you're wearing, you still get hit by the bullets, but they don't touch you.
Yeah.
So if you wear one, then you might still feel bullets, but if you built up enough body armor, so to speak, let's say you wear 5 bulletproof vests, well, the bullets that you're being hit by don't actually reach you, they don't touch you. So it doesn't stop you from feeling the emotions, it doesn't stop you from being attacked, so to speak, but they don't really irritate you, they don't harm you, they don't stop you from running your business, they don't impact the way that you're feeling, because ultimately we do influence, we can and we do influence our feelings, as you mentioned before. It's something that we can actually influence. But the difference is it's happening whether or not we're aware of it. That's one of the issues that I'm starting to see is people don't realize, okay, well, you don't have to feel this way, but you're feeling this way because of things that you've done or things that you've said or things that you've thought. And just by feeling something different, saying something different, doing something different, you will then feel something different as a result, and you'll start to take different actions and get different results. The problem is this process, whether it's bad or worse or better or worse or good or bad or amazing or not so great, it doesn't really matter because that process is happening all the time. So you can listen to certain music, you can wear certain clothes, you can go a different way to work, you can have a practice before you go on any call that you have with clients, which I have, or you can do whatever the case is, because all of the actions that you're taking do cause you to feel a certain way. And because of that process, people have influence over that, or they don't. It doesn't stop the process from being there. It's not something that you can just disagree with and hope that it's not there because it makes your life easier. Unfortunately, it's something that happens. It's something that goes about, and the people that do the best with it are the people that know that it exists and actually be constantly aware of it and be proactive with it rather than reactive.
Yeah, actually, most often you can modulate your feelings much easier than you feel when you are inside a given situations. You have to take a look from a little bit outside to be separated from the given situation, and then the resolutions came much easier. That's what my experience is showing about such situations. That there is no such thing as trapping in given emotional states and not possible to escape. Everything is modulatable and everything is possible to be overcome. But in many cases, people don't realize this, and they need some kind of push from the outside, some kind of interaction with somebody else who can show them the different look of the situation, and then they realize that it can be different and it can be switched overnight, actually. So, Mike, thank you very much. I think we have an amazing discussion about overcoming fears, especially in entrepreneurial space, in sales, because this is something of crucial importance of every one of us. Most of the entrepreneurs don't share their fears because they think if they share that they have some kind of fears, they will be totally blown off. But it's nature, and we have to share our fears in order to make them much easier to overcome. And you already shown that all these problems are easily to overcome if we address them correctly. So we can continue discussions in the comments here, and of course I will be open to talk with you once again in some more detailed topics about overcoming these problems. So thank you very much, Mike, and thanks again for joining us in this video series. You are the first one, and I hope that you are giving a good start to this series of entrepreneurial interviews. And thank you for being part of our community as well. If you have interest of these topics, I can fairly say that your community, the Freedom Lunch, is a great place where everybody can freely share their stuff, really share their problems and find help from your side. Thanks,
Yeah,
Mike.
the the Facebook group started off as a bit of an experiment, I guess, because as I was moving into the fear side of things and the mindset side of things, I realized that one of the opposites to fear is freedom. So a lot of us
Yeah,
feel controlled by fear. A lot of us feel like we can't do anything. We can't do what we want to do because of fear, because of conversations that are inside our own heads. So the Freedom Lounge is it's free for anybody that wants to join. I'll leave it up to you if you want to put a link in the group or anything.
yeah,
People can join.
I'll do.
People can come over,
Yeah,
say hi, say hello, and I do videos. I do posts in there, and I also post episodes of the podcast in there as well, so you can check that out as well, just
yeah,
by being a member.
yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Bye bye.
Bye.